I meant to tell you, I sat down. Was it
Mm-hmm.
Wednesday? I was off work. I was on my loo day, and me and Katie sat down. We've been watching films online and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we can't do it in person at the moment. And we put Coming to America on, like the sequel, and we got about 25 minutes into it, and we're like, nope.
What's the what's the last good film Eddie Murphy was in?
I think, I don't know. We were talking about it, and I said it's like his career just seemed to nosedive. It was like he had his. I don't know how involved he was in like the writing of his earlier films and stuff, but I mean, he was a great stand-up comedian. You know, he did Delirious and stuff like that, and they were really good stand-up comedy. And he actually inspired a lot of like later black comedians that we have now. You know, some of the really strong ones. But then there was just this point that he seemed to like kind of his live action just seemed to nosedive and never recovered from it. And he just completely lost touch with like what's funny. It's a shame.
The song he released sucked.
What song was that?
My girl wants to party all the time, party
was that
all
Eddie
the time,
Murphy?
Party all the time.
I didn't know that was
Eddie Murphy. Yeah.
Jesus.
I kid you not. Yeah, he released that as a song. There was a music video. Slick Rick was producing it, and they were all acting like it was like the best thing of all time, and it's really not. It's like a really average song.
Oh my god, I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Anyway, should we start the episode?
Go on then.
Yeah.
Twisted my arm.
Hello, and welcome to the Unlucky Frog Gaming Podcast. You are joined by your usual, or two of your usual hosts here, Tom Mannering.
Hello.
And myself, Josh Hartley. Tom, how are we doing this week?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm decent. I've been on a bit of a fitness kick this week, so I've been using my Fitbit to get out and get steps in every day, so my legs hurt. Because I haven't really walked for, what are we, like 12 months, I guess?
Yeah, we are coming up on a year of lockdown.
Yeah, I've kind of...
Well, not continuous lockdown. We're coming up on a year of the pandemic and life not being normal.
Yeah, so in my my autobiography, when I describe this triumph, I will have kind of
Hold on. Before you continue, what's your autobiography called?
Oh, I don't know. That's a tricky one. That is a tricky one. There's so many things it could be, you know. Trial by.
We will find a title by the end of the episode.
Okay.
Continue.
Yeah, we'll see if it comes up. I was going to be like trial by, you know, moderation or something. Really, really douche. But yeah, so in my autobiography, I'll overcome that ordeal of being able to walk, you know, around my neighborhood. But other than that, I've done a few games and things which we'll maybe discuss later, and just been keeping busy, same as everyone else. What about yourself?
Good on you for doing something to be healthier, though. My doing something to be healthier this year has been dieting, and he says drinking a can of lager while we record this.
I mean, you can diet and still drink obviously within not entirely, but within moderation. You know, you can still enjoy a tipple.
Yeah, and I've done all right. I've lost. Yeah, I'll say this on the podcast. I've lost 15 pounds.
That's really
January.
Good.
Yeah,
that's really good. Don't do yourself a disservice.
I'm wearing a jumper that I didn't used to fit into, so you know I'm pretty chuffed.
I will tell you I'll tell you an embarrassing but slightly funny story on the reverse of that. So I recently had an interview and I haven't put on a shirt for well over a year, and this interview's coming up, and I didn't do any sort of prep clothing wise, because why would you? But I grabbed my shirts, I chucked them in the wash, washed them, took them out, ironed them, and then on the day of the interview, I sort of put the first shirt on and couldn't button it up. So I was like, okay, well that's a smaller shirt, that's fine. I put that to one side, took the next shirt on, sort of buttoned it like halfway down, and it was like, okay, well that one, that's an older one as well, that's fine. Got to like the second to last one, couldn't button that one up, was like almost in tears, like, oh god.
Oh no, buddy.
No. And I got lucky, like I got to the last one and it was fine, like it was an appropriate size. They were more probably ambitious shirts, I would say, from when I was a skinnier fella that I could probably still have fit into.
Okay.
But now, 12 months into lockdown, I haven't looked after myself, in that. My focus was more on, let's just get through this. And if it's an extra pizza to get through it, it's an extra pizza.
Do you know what? Actually, damn right. Like, just do, guys, do what you've got to do to cope. Because the whole situation is rubbish.
Do what you've got to do to cope, but order in some larger shirts.
Yeah. It's insane that it's been going on for a year now.
That's the name of my autobiography. Do what you got to do to cope, but order in some extra shirts.
I didn't think we'd stumble upon it that quickly, but there we go. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, how have I been? I said, as I said before we started recording, I was in a stinker of a mood earlier today, but it's greatly improved now. I had a very rude customer, and like, I'd like to think that all our listeners are nice, decent people, but just as a little public service announcement, guys, even if you're frustrated at the company that you're dealing with, like, don't be nasty to the person that you're speaking to, because it's probably not their fault. And even if it is their fault, like, just be polite. Like, it's not much to ask.
Do you think maybe he does listen to the show, and he's sort of heard me beating down on you, and he's like, I want a piece of that. Tracked you down.
I doubt it. But there's a chance. I can't deny that.
Not ruling it out.
Yeah. Otherwise, I've been all right, and we're gonna have a chat about like what we've been up to, this week, gaming wise and hobby wise. It's occurred to me there is a little bit of news that you posted in our internal group chat last night. There's a new role-playing game announced.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about this. Yeah, so they have announced a Terminator, an RPG set in the Terminator universe, which is interesting, I will say. It's a Kickstarter, unsurprisingly.
He says with faint praise.
The company that are doing it are called Nightfall Games. Who I've never heard of, to be completely honest. I will say the art on the front of the book, if that is the final art, is quite nice. And there's some interesting,
classic like T1000, isn't it? Like, yeah,
and there's some interesting ideas in it. In that kind of you can play it at like different points in the Terminator chronology, probably before the films got shit, would be my choice. But
so Terminator's 1 or 2,
yeah. Between those two, there's your sweet spot. But no, I always get a bit antsy with IP games, especially like I have to consider: is this really going to lend itself very well to an RPG, and what opportunities are there here? Yeah, and I think Terminator could function as a one shot, maybe even as a very brief campaign, but like. Are you going to get a sprawling narrative out of that? They can't even get the films in sprawling narratives. So
yeah, because my thoughts were exactly the same, right? So like here's my question: Who are we playing? Right? Are we playing the person being hunted by the Terminator? Which, as you say, I think would be a really cool one shot. Mm-hmm. Or are we playing the Terminator, the T1000, where you're just killing everything? Like, no problem.
Yeah.
Like, the prior sounds better than the former, but I think the prior doesn't have that much legs on it, really.
It brings up an interesting point because there's recently been an Alien RPG released, and it's getting praise. Like every sort of reviewer and things that I follow are really praising this system and really praising this game, and it looks great. The productivity, the production quality on it is amazing, and they've done a really good job kind of tying it together and making it feel thematic from what I've seen from like the rules system. But even then, I'm looking at it going, like, maybe a few games, but...
Here's the thing with that setting, though. There are multiple adversaries that you can have. It's not... The aliens are not the only adversaries, right? You've got... You see it in, like, the films, but you've got people who are, like, trying to steer the crew into this situation for ulterior motives. Like... for whatever mad reason, they're wanting to try and like capture xenomorphs and the like. So I think there's a lot more narrative space for an RPG.
No, I would agree with that. I think it is certainly better suited. And they do one thing they do actually do with the Alien RPG that I do really like is they have 2 different modes of play to it. Maybe even 3, but definitely 2. One which is this is designed for one shots. And one which is designed for campaign play. And I think there's like agenda cards as well, where you actually have an agenda within the
so
the
you
RPG.
could be the bishop trying to like deliberately get the ship to pick up a sample of this alien.
Well, one of the ones I watched like a let's play type thing of it, and one of the players had the synthezoid card. And basically, like he flips it, and like he reveals that he's actually an android, and but like they don't necessarily have like bad agendas. I think sometimes they can have good agendas as well. Which I quite like that. That's sort of a merging of the sort of hidden traitor games with an RPG, and that's not a bad idea.
It's good to give your character a bit of direction, right?
Yeah, definitely. And we've discussed before, players having secrets in games can add to the game as well. But yeah, it's a weird one. Like Terminator's just like, okay, fair enough. There's a couple of different Terminators now that you could probably draw on, but
they're all kind of the same thing.
They're all just killing machines, right?
We're gonna have some Terminator fan, possibly my buddy Chris. I don't know if he listens to this, but my buddy Chris loves the Terminator films.
Okay,
but like we'll have the T-1000 is so different from the whatever. They're all the same kind, like profile of character. They are all the soulless like killing machine.
Yeah.
That. An unstoppable killing machine as well, I should say. Like, some are more unstoppable than others, but they kind of fill the same role.
Yeah. No, I get you. And I suppose, like, you've obviously could have run-ins with the police as well, and there could be some corrupt humans in there, I suppose, as well. I mean, I don't know. Maybe
it feels like when we're getting to that stage, it feels like we're kind of clutching at straws a little.
Yeah, definitely. But who knows? I mean, Nightfall Games, if you want to send me a copy of your role-playing game, and I'll see if I can change my mind on it. But, at this point in time.
How do you feel about the Terminator films in general?
I haven't seen all of them, is the honest truth. So I've seen the first 2. I've seen the third
They're the only
one.
2 you need to see.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen them multiple times. They're amazing films. I've seen the third one. I think I've seen the one that had the I can't remember her name now. The woman who played the Queen of Dragons in Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
you can't.
I know who you're talking about, but I'm blanking on her name as well. This is terrible.
Yeah, well, I've seen the one that has her in and has Arnold in as well, and that was fine. Like, it wasn't great, but it was fine. I watched it. I haven't seen the one that doesn't have like Arnold in at all beyond like maybe a brief cameo. I haven't seen Dark Fate. Yeah, they just kind of they dropped the ball with it a bit, I think, and they're just flogging a dead horse. What about you?
I think they should have just left it at 2. Like the second one is an example of like a sequel for me anyway, a sequel that is better than the original, and I would say the second best action film of all time.
What is the best action film of all time?
Die Hard.
Okay, that's a fair choice.
Yeah.
I think, weirdly, mentioning that, I think Alien and Aliens is arguably one of the... I prefer Aliens to Alien. I think
I think that the funny thing with those films is they're tonally extremely different.
Yeah, because one's like a horror and one's more an action.
Yeah. So, like, I love both of them.
Yeah.
Like, they're both great films. I couldn't pick between the two. I think if you had a gun against my head, I'd probably go with the first one, but, like, the second one's excellent as well. And
who's this guy putting guns to your head about films?
I don't know, man.
Sick son of a bitch.
I don't know, man. But, yeah, the second one has the most iconic line in the entire series of "Get away from her, you bitch."
Yeah,
as well.
It's got loads as well. It's got like,
oh, it's game over, man. It's game over.
Anyway, this isn't the quoting aliens podcast, although that's potentially our next podcast.
We could turn it into that.
I'd listen. So back on topic. Yeah, I don't know. Movie IPs always make me a bit edgy with role playing games.
It makes me not just role playing games, like games in general.
Yeah.
Like I think. Okay, let's think of a tabletop game that has a. We'll broaden it from movie to just other IP that works. Can you think of one?
I mean, any IP at all.
Like movies, TV shows, comics. Crap.
Yeah, I was going to say,
we got a ton.
Don't open that can of worms, because I will come at you.
Yeah.
I think movie and TV show tie-in games can be very challenging. I have seen a couple. The Game of Thrones board game was quite good. The Battlestar Galactica game is really
Beloved.
good.
Yeah.
So there are some out there, definitely. In fact, if you're listening, stick in the comments your favourite tie-in games to movies.
You get it driving listener engagement.
Well,
you're a pro now. You're
just
pro.
On it, man. I'm on it. But yeah, like I think there are a few, but I think it's a difficult one. It's a bit like, there's that notorious reputation of movie tying games to computer games as well. That they're always just terrible. That
stopped being a thing a little while ago.
No, it has not, my friend.
Well, okay. Let me correct myself there. That is less of a thing nowadays.
It is less of a thing, but it is still a thing because it's an easy cash grab for gaming studios. You get a really shoddy, quickly thrown out game. You stick a big movie that's coming out with a license on it. I mean, they did it with like Thor when the first Thor came out. There's a truly shocking game for that. Iron Man had the same. Quite a few of the DC titles have had some shockers on them over the years.
These are all PlayStation 2 games.
Not all of them.
Oh, apart from the notorious Superman 64.
Superman 64. E.T. Atari. The first
OG.
of its kind, yeah.
There have been some great ones, though, as well.
Such as?
A lot of the Star Wars games.
Okay, yeah, I will give you that. But also Star Wars have had some absolute stinkers as well to balance it out.
Okay, so we're neutral on Star Wars. The first Alien vs. Predator game was not even based on a movie at that time. It was based on a comic book, based on 2 movies. But
yeah, Aliens had some really good ones. It's had some terrible ones because it had Colonial Marines, which was terrible. But then it had Isolation, which was also really good. So Yeah, it is a tricky one, for sure. Um, I
Why
don't
do you
know.
think that is?
I think because you're playing in someone else's ballpark. That's always what kind of.
Yeah.
I think like you are never going to have the same understanding and appreciation for something unless you were the creator of it. Which I think is why when someone builds a board game and it's their IP or it's their world, they're gonna understand it. There's gonna be passion behind it. If you look at something like Roots, uh, like that's the my understanding is that's the creator's world, right? Like that's all.
Yes.
So
100%.
you can tell that is like a labor of love in that game. Even if you don't like how the game plays, it looks beautiful. It tells its own story. It feels very. It all feels tied together in both how the game works and the setting that it's played within. Whereas if you're trying to make say for example, an Alien game, you might have a vision of what you want your game to be, and then you're kind of pushing the Alien IP into that to make it work. And I think that's where you tend to find the shoddier ones come out.
Yeah, that's fair. I suppose like maybe the best examples are like where the theme of the game, the theme of the movie fits the game naturally. Like I think one of the because I thought of another video game that was really good was Jurassic Park. I can't remember the name of it, but it was basically theme park Jurassic Park.
I remember
Like,
that, yeah.
and that's great. Like, who doesn't want to build Jurassic Park and make sure it doesn't go wrong? Like,
I mean, you really want to make sure it does go wrong because that's where the fun is.
there's a part, yeah. That's part and parcel for any of those games though. Like, if you're playing like SimCity, like you build this massive city and then just go, ha ha, Godzilla attack.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a strange one, isn't it? Like you need to be really careful when you're playing in someone else's park, and I think as well you as a player go into it with an expectation. So I think maybe that plays a part in it. You know what you would expect from a Terminator game, an Alien game, whatever it is, when you go into it, and then it doesn't deliver on that, and you kind of like looking at, oh, this is not what I wanted it to be.
Is there an IP that you wish there was a proper game for?
There have been games for some things that I've really liked IPs for, but they don't get as much love as I would like to see. So one thing I would actually really like to see, and I don't think it exists. If it does, it's passed me by somehow. I'd love to see a really good Star Trek game, like a board game. Right? And it seems kind of...
Board game, yeah, I think there's several RPGs, but I don't recall seeing a board game.
Yeah, like I think... Especially in this day and age where there's so many different sort of takes on Star Trek,
They did Wing Commander, right, which is basically X-Wing before Fantasy Flight got their grubby hands on the Star Wars license.
But this is the thing, right? Star Trek isn't a space combat game.
No, it's not. Yeah, that's the weird thing.
It's a game. It should, and the reason why I think it'd be a great board game if you could make it work, should be about exploration and diplomacy. And maybe if you want, you could have some elements of combat and subterfuge and things like that in there, because they have all been included. But I mean, like, there's some of the best Star Trek stories told. I'm going to seem like such a Trek here, and I'm really not. But so many like the Star Trek stories told are all about like, what makes someone a good person. What's the right thing to do. The Prime Directive is always called on in episodes. And whether following rules is always the right thing to do, and you could build that into a game, a morality-based game. But I've not really seen it done. Even like Decipher did a Star Trek card game back when I was a teenager, and me and my friends at the time played it religiously. But we just used to build your own sort of area of space. And the way the game was designed was you were supposed to go to these different worlds and do missions, which might be like diplomacy and things like that. But the way we played it totally wrong, because we used to just go down, put as many ships down, and then just run around and have big fleet battles and stuff. And which is the exact opposite of what I want a Star
Yeah,
Trek game
because
to
that's
be
not
now.
what Star Trek is at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fair. The other idea I had was like a sort of management game of like, managing the SS Enterprise, like
The SS
just,
Enterprise.
sorry,
USS.
USS. Right. Right. You say you're not a Trekkie. I can count on one hand the number of episodes of Star Trek, all series, that I've watched.
Missing out.
I'm sure I am, but there's a lot of TV shows that people say that. So
You should watch.
I'll add it to the list.
You should.
I'll add it to
There
the
is
list.
a Star Trek role playing game, which I wouldn't mind actually running at some point in time. That does look really interesting and does sort of focus predominantly on more of the, as it can easily do, on the exploration and the diplomacy side of things, which I think would be pretty cool, and it does lend itself really well to it.
Yeah, well, this is it. I think it works really well for that because it isn't a high combat setting, right?
And to tie it back, I think that's what sort of is the difference between, say, a Terminator RPG and Star Trek is, one, there is a wealth of material to Star Trek, but two, there's so many different aspects to it. There's exploration, diplomacy, subterfuge, combat, all these different things that you can explore that you really just don't have that kind of scope. Plus, there's a wealth of alien races and planets and things like that, that you can draw on. That's where you've got potential for a role-playing game that you don't have with some other IPs, unfortunately. Anyway.
Anyway.
What about you? What I sort of talked over you a bit there, as I want to do on occasion.
What have I been up to?
No,
I don't know.
What would you want as a same question?
I forgot what the question was. What would I want as an IP? You created DuckTales for me, I did. I kind of I think that would be my angle, though. That sort of vein. I think there's... what am I trying to get at here? The Saturday morning cartoon feel, I think, would work well for an RPG.
Okay.
I don't really know off the top of my head any sort of official sources for that, right?
Not really, no.
I am aware of a My Little Pony RPG. We are not going to discuss that any further. I am aware of it. But yeah, I kind of think something like a DuckTales or a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but then there's the problem of obviously everyone wants to just play as the Ninja Turtles. I don't know if you could make that setting broad enough where you could create your own mutants to play in. In fact, is Mutants and Masterminds officially in that universe, or does it just fit naturally?
No, Mutants and Masterminds are superhero RPG. You could certainly make the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with the Mutants and Masterminds system, and with probably any superhero RPG system. But they're not set in... They have their own setting, which is weird, to say the least, because it tries to encapsulate... It's a weird one because it tries to encapsulate all the different generations of comic ages without actually using any existing IPs, and it's all their own made-up characters and things.
Wow, okay.
Which is ambitious, to say the least.
Yeah.
But it's also quite a lot to take in as a GM if you're running in that setting.
Yeah. No, that's fair. But no, I would want to see a classic Saturday morning cartoon.
Okay.
Turned in. Not a specific one, but I think there's a gap in the sort of market. I naturally think DuckTales would be a great one. But other good examples would be Tintin. Tintin would be great as an RPG.
Would it? Is he not just a dude that travels around,
It's high action,
places?
There's adventure, there's investigation,
Yeah, okay.
You could probably actually fit Call of Cthulhu to Tintin and just remove a lot of the horror elements of it.
That is some messed up Tintin.
Yeah, but or like I don't know, like that kind of tone and feel.
I get you.
Do you know what I mean?
Sort
like,
of a more innocent adventure type thing.
Kind of like where I get the challenge of it, right? It's because death has to be a threat, and death never or seldom happens in Saturday morning cartoons.
I think there are a few systems, no big ones, unfortunately. I think there are a few systems out there that do cater to the kind of thing you're talking about, because I did some research into child-friendly systems, both when I was prepping that DuckTales game for you, and when I've run games for kids at conventions previously as well. And I have seen there are some systems out there that are designed to be a bit more family-friendly and sort of take away the, slay the monster type setting. But I don't think any have been well supported, and I don't think any have been fleshed out massively. But then again, if you're doing them with the intent that they are for a younger audience, you probably don't want too much to them either, because you don't want to overcomplicate them. Kids not going to flick through. I was a weird kid. I flicked through a lot of source books, but most kids wouldn't sit and flick through, half a dozen source books to build their characters and things like that. But I think that's a good idea, and I think especially like to draw on kind of DuckTales as an example, I think like a Disney Power Hour, like source, like a rule book and source book.
Holy crap!
Would be so cool.
So good.
Yeah, that like draws from like all the kind of.
Like from DuckTales, Tailspin,
Darkwing
Chip
Duck,
and Dale, Darkwing
Rangers.
Duck, like
just cover the gamut. You can even pull in like just the general Disney, Mickey Mouse and Co. as well, and throw them in there for good measure. That would be great, especially for younger players and Josh.
Hey! Come on! You would enjoy that too.
I would. Yeah, I probably would. I had fun with the DuckTales game, to be fair, so I can't pretend I wouldn't enjoy it. There's something to be said for a bit of innocent fun.
Yeah.
And I say that as someone who is quite well known for running quite dark games. But every so often it's nice to just go a bit daft and take it easy.
Yeah. So that would be my wish list. We'll actually just say DuckTales or Duckverse.
Duckverse.
I think Duckverse is the official. I don't know if Disney acknowledges that name, but Duckverse encapsulates like DuckTales, Tailspin, Darkwing Duck, and Goof Troop. Because
which doesn't make any sense. Like, why Goof Troop is and Tailspin as well are part of that.
They have characters crossover. I haven't watched season 3 of DuckTales yet. I'm waiting for it to come onto Disney Plus, but apparently the characters from Tailspin are in it. Apart from Don Canash, who is in. I'm getting too deep into DuckTales here. Right, we need to change the subject right now.
Pronto. I like how you're sitting there like, I don't watch much TV. I don't watch Star Trek and Game of Thrones and all these things. I don't have time to follow that. And you're like, well, the canon
DuckTales.
of the DuckTales universe. No, I get that. I think that would be cool. I would be down for that. And I think as well a Duckverse themed board game could be quite good fun as well.
Like a sort of adventure-based board game. Yeah, that would be neat. With minis. Give us Scrooge McDuck as a mini. That would be amazing.
That seems like a bit of a missed opportunity, really, to do a really good sort of DuckTales, Duckverse. And I imagine, again, there has been a DuckTales board game, but I can't imagine it been very good.
No.
But like a good one, where you've got like, how cool would it be to have like a plastic like volcano or something, and you're you're going around it collecting treasures and stuff, something like that.
Man. Yeah.
I'd be all over that. With like little Huey, Dewey, and Louie and Launchpad McQuack and
Yeah.
Scrooge and Nanny and what's the girl duck
Della. No, not Della's the mum. It is. Oh, damn, I'm letting my.
I can't think of her name. It's not Daisy, is it? Because Daisy's
No.
Donald's.
It is. Why has this gone from me? It's just completely escaped my mind now.
I'm not saying anything because I'm seeing if I'm going to let you go silent so you can edit it so you look like you know it straight away. Hang on.
Google.
Duck in
DuckTales characters.
Della Duck.
Della Duck's the mum.
Is it?
It's not the mum.
Webby.
It is Webby. Webby Vanderquack.
There
we go.
That's the
See, as soon as I heard the first name, I knew the surname. Right.
So yeah, I think you could do great things with that. I don't know if what the uptake on something like that would be because a lot of people our age maybe don't and probably shouldn't share your enthusiasm for the DuckTales universe.
Hey, I actually think, and I think this is the smart thing they did with the new DuckTales TV show was they made it kid friendly, but if you watch DuckTales as a child and you are in your mid-30s now, you will really enjoy it. Right.
It is really good. It's far better than it deserves to be. I think we said as much on a previous episode. I had a lot of fun watching it as research because it's just got some crackers.
Yeah.
Some quackers in there. Anyway.
Oh, moving on.
On another note, we were going to have a chat about some of the games we have been playing recently online in a socially distanced fashion.
I have them in my shite.
So we'll start with last night, shall we? We played in Scott's Age of Sigmar game, which we mentioned last episode. But we continued that with Ben, myself, and Josh. And we're still playing through Blood Tide, which is the first part of the campaign, the pre-written campaign that Scott's running for us. We came across quite a weird encounter, I think is a reasonable way to put it.
We got attacked by flying fish.
Yeah, it was the first encounter of the session as well.
Not big flying fish, just flying fish jumping over the ship.
Fish jumping over the ship, sort of doing a little bit of damage and getting caught in the net. It was a very strange opening combat for a module, and to Scott's credit, he ran it as well as he could.
Scott was having terrible technical difficulties as well, which really did not help.
Fighting an uphill battle against Discord. As I'm sure anyone who's had to use Discord on a regular basis will probably sympathise with. But yeah, it was a real, it was a really weird encounter. I think that's one of the, with no disservice to Scott or Age of Sigmar as a setting, Soulbound, it is one of the weirdest opening encounters I've seen in a module.
We technically did come across a Kraken beforehand, but it felt a lot less. That was more like roll some skill checks. Oh, you got away, right? Like that one felt like more closer to like a proper combat. But the weird thing about it was because like. You're probably listening and saying, "Oh, flying fish, that's probably going to be quite easy, right?" It was pretty difficult.
Like, weirdly hard.
Yeah. Like
I actually got quite irate towards the end of it because like the fish, and what I do think is quite a nice touch is that like you don't just cut the fish out the air; they get caught in the rigging of the ships that you're on.
Yeah.
And the intention is that you then climb up into the rigging and you pull the fish out and you have to try and get rid of them without getting bitten, which is fine. That's a nice little skill challenge thing to have in. But like the difficulty for these, like this, just climbing into ship rigging and pulling a fish out.
Yeah.
It was just
didn't
obscene.
Feel like it matched at all.
Yeah. It was like, it got me annoyed because I don't like poorly written opening gambits because I think it sets a poor precedent for the rest of the adventure, and hopefully it's not the case in this instance. But like I
doubt it.
if you're running, at least my perception, and I think a lot of GMs would agree with me on this, if you are running an adventure, you don't want your PCs to fail. You should want your PCs to succeed. You want them to be challenged, but you want them to succeed. But I felt like some of those skill tests were designed to almost to punish you quite harshly if you hadn't built your character in a very specific way.
Yeah.
Which none of us have, because we're a 3-person party that consists of 2 dwarves and a eccentric, whimsical pixie girl.
Also, a potential title for your autobiography. Carry on.
Good second runner. It seemed very, very punishing, and I don't see a lot of parties having what they want you to have to deal with that, because you need to have a very high perceptive skill, and then you need to have a very high, I want to say it's dexterity reflexes as well, which you might build into, but that's still only 1 player, and then you need to roll 6s.
I think that's the trouble. Like in a lot of circumstances similar to that, you just need 1 person in the party to spot the thing, to do the perception, and you need 1 person in the party to be able to do the dexterity thing, right? With the way that this was constructed, that had to be the same person. So
it wasn't even like 1 check clears the fish. It was a check per fish.
Yeah.
And there were like 7 fish. So you're making... And like Scott, to his credit, just hand-waved it and was like, you're wearing enough armor that this isn't going to damage you, so I'm not going to have you make all these checks, which was a really good call on his part.
Yes.
Because if he hadn't, I probably would have just flipped my keyboard in rage. But yeah, it's a really unfortunate design choice, and I hope they kind of learn from it, and we don't see a lot of that in the rest of the adventure, because you do want to feel like you've got a chance at succeeding in these kinds of checks when you're rolling them.
Overall, though, the tone of the adventure is pretty cool. We're out on the open seas with this very shady elf captain. I hesitate to use the word pirate, but
he is a
there
pirate.
we go. Yeah, it's a neat setting and setup for the adventure. It was just such a weird encounter that we had.
Yeah, it was very, very strange. I think had I wrote that adventure, I would have put a much more dynamic encounter in there. I probably would have actually done the Kraken later, as more of a set piece, and I would have had the opening adventure. I don't know the Age of Sigmar setting well enough to draw on a specific thing, but it's some sort of smaller sea monsters maybe crawl up onto the ship,
or pirates, let's have some pirates try and board the ship, and we just deal with them, something to warm us up. I do wonder whether they wrote this campaign on the belief that players have already played a few adventures or not, right? I don't know what the best way of going about it is. Do you know what I mean? Whether they should be trying to write it assuming that people have already had a crack at other adventures, or assuming that this is the first thing that they try in Soulbound.
No, I get that, but I think they must realise that this is going to be a lot of people's point of entry.
Yeah, okay.
Because a lot of GMs are they'll either have waited or they'll now start running new games.
I suppose it's a bit like the Curse of Strahd, right? That's probably shouldn't be your first adventure, but will be because it's such a famous, iconic adventure path.
Which, funnily enough, Curse of Strahd has a notoriously bad and difficult opener as well.
There we are.
Because it has something called the Death House, which is a incredibly challenging level 1 and level 2 adventure to open you up into Curse of Strahd, which is admittedly a fairly punishing module anyway, because it's Ravenloft. But it's notoriously challenging, which I just don't think is the way to go. you don't want to introduce people to a game or to a campaign and just beat them down, because you'll leave them demoralized out the gate. You build
You
them
don't
up a
want
bit,
feel bad.
then you beat them down.
Yeah.
Get their hopes up, then crush them. It's much sweeter that way. It's more delicious.
Fair enough. I never experienced that from you, Tom. Never.
I've not killed that many of your characters.
To be fair, no. 2? You're on 2, right?
No, because I killed Blacktooth.
Oh, 3.
Yeah,
You're on 3.
Blacktooth, Ellard, and I killed Orlan twice.
I forgot you killed him twice, to be fair, yeah. You did.
So yeah, there you go. On the subject of games as well that Josh and I have played in, so we've also been playing our Star Wars Edge of the Empire campaign.
Yeah, we have.
Which is now been going on for a good bit of time, actually. The majority of lockdown. After we finished up.
When did we finish up Pathfinder?
I want to say maybe June last year, June, July.
Was it June? Yeah.
So it
might have been earlier than that.
Yeah, it was fairly early on. We only did a few sessions of that online before we moved over. And we'd be doing Edge of the Empire. And we're now kind of, I think people are finding their footing with the rules for that a bit, because it does take some getting used to when you're used to D20 systems. And we've had some fun adventures. Josh's R3 droid now has multiple personalities, because you have another R2 droid in your head.
I will fix that eventually.
Who is a devout member of the rebellion, which is, to your credit, has had some interesting RP moments.
Oh yeah,
in it. And we're doing an adventure at the moment where we're kind of we're doing a bit of classic Star Wars, because there is someone in your party who's Force sensitive, so we're learning a bit more about the Jedi. How have you been finding it?
Really, I've been loving the campaign, and I love the system, just in general. I think it's mechanically, I think it's pretty intuitive and easy to get your head around, which I like in general for RPGs, because it means that you have to put less effort into remembering how the rules work, and just more effort into just having fun with the experience of playing it.
Yeah. So,
and I love playing R3 as well. I keep saying it. He's one of my favourite characters that I've ever created to play.
I think you say that about every character, though. Like, every time you're playing a character, it's always your favourite character to play.
What do you think my favourite character is?
I don't know, because as I say, every character. So I remember when you were playing Julian back in your sort of.
He was my first one.
Yeah, he was your cherry. Was Julian, and he was your favorite. You loved playing Julian, and then you did Blacktooth, and you loved Blacktooth.
All 2 sessions.
All those 2 sessions of Blacktooth. Then you did Ellard, and you really liked Ellard. Then you did Orlan, and you really liked Orlan, and now you're playing R3. So I think your favorite is just whatever you're playing at that given time.
It's right. Well, in all honesty, it's not like my I think my favorite to play has been Orlan. Right.
Oh, there you go.
Overall, so
you do have a favorite, and it's not R3.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not like, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful fashion, but it's not like you have a wealth of characters to make a choice.
No, like yeah, you're right. I haven't got like dozens and dozens of different characters that I've played that I can go. There's there's some of the characters that I built a gnome sorcerer for like Pathfinder Society that I tried for a couple of sessions, and it was alright, but.
Was this not the one where you were all built around illusions, and everything was immune to it?
And the adventure that I happened to play was all adversaries who were immune to that. Yeah. And it's like, well, I am useless.
That's just unfortunate. unfortunate. I think more than
that was unfortunate. That's the dice you roll when you're building a specific build like that, though. It's like, well, I'm going to be bad at this one particular thing, and let's hope we don't have an entire session based around that.
Do you know what's weird though? Like, so you're saying Orland's your favourite character. I'm sorry, I just sent my
Tom's
pencil.
just dropped something.
Sent the pencil
listener.
that was keeping my hands busy flying across the room in a moment of poor decision making. There we go. So in the different characters that you've played, we're nothing if not professional here at Unlucky Frog. Your two sort of, let's say, two of your favourite characters are Orlan and R3, both of who are small, quite sassy. says that probably says something about you. I'm not sure.
Maybe. I kind of it's a mode of character that I really enjoy, though. So someone who is maybe there's maybe more to them than you would assume from. No, I was deliberately not trying to quote Transformers there. Thank you. More to them than you would assume.
Sure.
You know, I actually find like halflings like a really like compelling race to play in like the Forgotten Realms. Anyway, my other go-to is like half orc though, because that's always fun as well. I just get to put on a Cockney accent and act all dumb and strong.
I think halflings are a great race in pretty much any fantasy setting they exist in, except maybe Dark Sun, where they get a bit dark, funnily enough. But I think in like Forgotten Realms, Warhammer Fantasy, you know, any sort of default D&D
the Hobbits
setting,
in like Middle Earth,
because they're just a bit innocent. You know, they're even when they're not innocent. You know, when they're sort of thieves or you know they're kind of the stereotypical halfling rogue. There's still sort of an innocence to them, and it is that you know they come across as non-threatening, but they can be, especially in D&D and Pathfinder. We've both played a halfling ranger in different settings, and
Orlan was bloody lethal.
Yeah, in both settings, and the halfling ranger I played in Pathfinder was exactly the same. You know, they were absolutely punishing, tiny death machines. Which I think it's a fun sort of, you know, juxtaposition from how they are perceived to what they actually present at that stage. So they're not to be underestimated, which I think makes them fun to play. Because
I will say this, right? Playing an R-droid though is different in that, let's face it, R3 is useless in combat. And I built him knowing that. Like, I built him, like, on the understanding that I'm going to be amazing at this sort of skill set that I'm going to build into. But everything else, I'm going to be okay at. And then combat, I'm going to be awful.
Yeah.
Like,
and I mean,
that in itself is interesting to play, though.
Yeah. And he has, you know, proven invaluable. With your ability to like hack computers and terminals and doors and things, you know, there's been so many times
mechanics as well.
The party have needed that for one reason or another, and you come through for them. Funnily enough, more or less, I think you and Dave's pilot characters have had just this streak of more or less passing every essential check related to your field of expertise. I mean, Dave's have been. They're past comical now how good his starfighter pilot is.
Dave's character Koro is teched into piloting, and he is the best pilot in the galaxy. I am quite confident in saying that now.
Like the episode we just had, I got really excited because you messed up the astrogation check to jump into the orbit of a red star. And I looked at the table and I was like, right, they've messed up the astrogation check, so they're going to drop out of hyperspeed into an asteroid field that's hurtling towards them with all this space debris in it as well. And it's like such a hard piloting check to deal with it. And I was like, right, and I'm going to make it harder as well. And I used like the dark side point mechanic to make it even harder for him. And I was like, I'm going to show you guys, like, I'm going to show you how deadly this place that you've come to is. And he just, not only did he pass the check, he passed it with aplomb. And like, I said,
like, no bother.
he just drops out of hyperspace and just weaving between these asteroids. And the way we described it was like he had one hand on the wheel and like kind of leaning back with like a cigarette in his mouth and his foot up on the dashboard, just sort of weaving between all these asteroids and space junk. And there's so many times he's done that, and it's infuriating for me because I'm not getting to present a challenge, but it's so good. Like you can't hate it. I think that's one thing I really like about the Star Wars system. It's so narrative. The system they use, while it is unusual because it does put so much more onus on the players to forge the narrative of their character, which can put a lot of players on the back foot. And I think it put a lot of your group on the back foot for the first few sessions because you just don't know, in
what am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah, it's like, okay, so how do you use that to your advantage? And you're just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But once you kind of get a bit of a feel for it, we've had some really, really fun, really cool moments come out of it, and it has become a system that's become pretty well liked for that reason because of the narrative. For me,
it's up there with Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah,
I think again, this guy's back with the gun against my head, demanding to know my favorite RPG.
This lunatic.
Yeah, I know. I need to lock my door. I
like the idea that there's a guy who lives across the hall from you, and he just periodically comes into your house with a gun and gives you these really obscure decisions that you have to make.
Yeah, he goes. I make the decision. He goes away, and I'm just like, I really should call the police about this guy.
Just a quiet Thursday night. Beef stew or spaghetti bolognese. What is it?
Spike ball. But yeah, going against my head, it's Call of Cthulhu for me. I think that is my favorite RPG that I've tried. But I think Star Wars is up there. I really, really enjoy it. Just the fact that I love the Star Wars universe anyway.
Yeah.
Right? And it's the fact that it is this really cool, intuitive system. Like I said earlier, it's it's not too difficult to get your head around, so it means that you can put more effort into actually enjoying the storytelling process. And having a bit of narrative control as a player is... It's different, but really refreshing. It means I can come up with these really cool ways that the story pans out rather than having things happen to me.
Gives you a bit more agency.
Yeah,
that's a good
player
thing.
Agency is always a good thing.
It is very important, and I think that's probably a good place to wrap up the episode. Do you think?
Given that you're playing Overwatch in 2 minutes, let's
don't need to rumble my personal life. Shame me in front of my friends.
To be fair, that is as good a time as any to wrap things up. So, look, guys, thank you very much for listening, and until next time, take care.
Bye.
Bye.